welcome our special guest today. You might know some of his famous stories like Percy Jackson and Magnus Chase. Please give a warm welcome to Rick Riordan.
Franco. Slows. Ricky Morty. Rick. Yo, Ricky Morty. Yo.
Hello, Rick. We are so excited to have you on the show tonight. Thank you for bringing me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tonight we would like to honor your writing by telling some of our most favorite works of yours. First we'll begin with Dia.
My favorite book is Lightning Thief. It follows the story of young Percy Jackson, a troubled 12-year-old boy with a secret unknown even to himself. Diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD, while being raised primarily by his mother, his life so far has not always been easy. Percy is repeatedly kicked out of school due to unexplainable events that aren't really his fault. He discovers that he is a demigod, and he gets sent on a quest to retrieve Zeus's prized lightning bolt. Throughout the journey, Percy and his newfound friends from the camp Half-Blood fight evil demons with snakeheads and travel to different realms to retrieve their beloved people. Their relationships begin and expand throughout the first journey of the Percy Jackson series.
That's a great choice. Definitely one of my favorite books I've ever written.
My favorite book is the third book in the Magnus Chase series, where Magnus and his friends are tasked with saving the world from Loki and his demon crew of various beasts and evils. They are challenged all throughout with different life-threatening situations like battling sea gods and promising things that will be impossible to make happen. Magnus relies on his friends and his family from the Frey side, or his dad's. As they cross the realms and sail the three seas, they are faced with new demons and a clock that continues to count down. They must make it before the death ship is ready to sail. Will they make it?
So, Rick, we are so excited to hear what your favorite work is that you've created. Since you've heard ours, what's your favorite?
In my opinion, the best book I've ever written is The Trials of Apollo, the first book.
The story starts when Apollo, the god of archery, music, dance, prophecy, and more, is made into a mortal and banished to Earth after he is blamed for the civil war between the Greek and Roman gods. He must now navigate not being a muscular and handsome god, but being a pimply, chubby, and geeky 16-year-old boy by the name of Lester. Lester is saved by Meg, who we discover later to be a demigod. They meet up with Percy Jackson and go to Camp Half-Blood. Apollo learns that a number of student campers have gone missing, and the Oracle has gone silent. Through all of these events, Apollo experiences things he has never experienced before because he is now mortal. He values the lives of his children more. I've really enjoyed writing this book because it made me feel more connected to my own children when I wrote about Apollo's children. Apollo's character development from a self-obsessed god to a more caring and mature person is really important in this story.
Wow, Rick, that was a great explanation of your favorite novel that you've written. We're really excited to ask you a few questions. But first, we have a special guest, maybe your number one fan, here to tell you their favorite book and ask you some questions.
Hello, Rick. I am actually one of your biggest fans, so I am so grateful to talk to you today. I specifically want to thank you for writing this book, Magnus Chase, the Gods of Asgard, specifically the first one in this series called The Sword of Summer. It's specifically my favorite book of yours because of how it starts. The first chapter is called Good Morning, You're Going to Die, and this is unlike any book I've ever read before. You're already telling us that he's going to die within the first page. It's just another brilliant way to pull me and other fans right into your stories. And this is unlike all of your other works, which is why it is my favorite one. Also, I think that your creativity really comes through in this novel. The story of his death comes through within the first 50 pages, so I had no idea what's going to happen next, but you kept me reading. He stays in a hero's hotel, he meets inhumane creatures, and completes a mission inspired by his newly discovered father. Crazy and amazing. While the beginning of the story is so unique to your other works, I am able to notice the incredible skills and patterns between The Sword of Summer and other works and other series of yours. You always beautifully describe the feats of an unlikely protagonist with surprises from their backgrounds. This is true to all your stories, but each one is still a page-turner. Also, I love this book specifically because I can really see the voice you have when you're writing. There's still a contrast between 16-year-old Magnus and his older uncle and friends, and I still feel like a teenager and a mature figure when I listen to each character. This is actually my favorite thing about you in general. You know your audience and you know how to capture them well. So that actually was one of the questions I have for you today. How do you do that so well?
That's a great question, Mason. I would describe myself as a funny guy. I often write with my target audience in mind, which is most commonly middle schoolers. From my experience, middle schoolers have a very dirty and dumb sense of humor. For example, in the Trials of Apollo, there's a mythical creature who throws peaches.
The Gods of Asgard, a certain adult scene where two swords act in some odd ways.
I know how much you love to include mythical creatures in your works. One of my favorite mythical creatures is the Phoenix, also because it's included in the Harry Potter story. What's your favorite mythical creature?
Wow, that's a tough question. Personally, I love centaurs. One of my most well-known characters is Chiron, who is a centaur, and he is in The Lightning Thief and The Trials of Apollo. He is a half-horse, half-man. Also love Cerberus. He is a three-headed dog, and he guards the gates to the underworld in The Lightning Thief. He looks terrifying. But turns out, he is not as terrifying as he looks. I don't think I can pick between the two. I love including creatures like these, although sometimes I hear it's difficult to keep track of all of them.
And before I leave, I had one more question. I know I mentioned a couple similarities between your works, but what are some other things that you like to include in everything that you write?
There are many trends and commonalities within all of my works. All of my books are set in the same universe, meaning they all interact with each other. They often meet in person or just mention each other. For example, Percy Jackson, the main character in The Lightning Thief, plays a role in the Trials of Apollo. Percy Jackson is also mentioned as a character in Magnus Chase.
Many of my books have a common setting, like Camp Half-Blood and Mount Olympus.
I also like to use a lot of the same literary devices, like hyperboles, foreshadowing, and diction.
Thanks, Rick.
Bye, Mason. Thank you so much for your questions.
So Rick, my next question to you is, how did you get your inspiration? Is it mostly real, semi-real, or almost all fictional?
My books are mainly catered to the youth representation of mythical stories. I pull a lot of my inspiration from real stories and use a lot of representation of characters and facts to add real effect. Although I do add a lot of fictional aspects to my writing to ensure readers have an interesting plot to stay intrigued on and excited for. I love to involve various mythical gods as my main focus throughout my literature, like Hades and Percy Jackson, Apollo in the series The Trials of Apollo, and Frey in the Ragnarok series with Magnus Chase.
So, Rick, how would you describe your writing style?
I would say that my main style of writing is almost always lighthearted and in first-person narrative. However, usually in the end of my books, they have a slightly sadder tone. My genre of writing is mostly fantasy with a lot of adventure.
So Rick, how long have you been writing?
I started my professional writing career with a mystery series that I published in 1997. So I've been published for about 25 years. Before that, I was a middle school teacher, and my passion for writing started far before my publishing. When I was 13, I tried to get my first book published, but obviously that didn't go as planned.
That's okay. I mean, look how many books you've published now.
pronounce my last name wrong. It is actually pronounced Riordan.
Oh, really? Sorry.
You're good. Also, over 20 million of my books have been printed. When I suffer from writer's block, I take out the trash to distract myself. My wife really appreciates that coping mechanism. And I actually have never seen any of my books on stage or on screen because it really weirds me out. My family has a reading hour where we just drop everything and read.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Rick.
Rick and Morty, Rick and Morty, Rick and Morty, Rick and Morty, Rick.